Hey guys, welcome back to Gaming for the Grade. If you're here again, it's because you must be getting something revision-y out of it. Today we're trying a bit of Fortnite Reload. It's been a while since I've given Reload a go, so we'll see how it goes. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Fezziwig. If you're not sure who that is, let me remind you quickly that Fezziwig is the name of Scrooge's employer when he was a young apprentice. He's essentially the man who gave Scrooge his start and showed him what good leadership as a boss looks like and what good being a good boss should look like. You remember that when the Ghost of Christmas Past takes Scrooge to see his former self, he comes to Fezziwig's Christmas party, where Fezziwig essentially has everybody packing up and preparing for a big party that essentially all of the employees are invited to. Don't know what that gun was, but I did not like it. Let's swap those out. Yes, an AR will do. So obviously there's the natural tendency to compare Fezziwig to Scrooge for the fact that he is an antithesis to Scrooge. He's an opposite, a contrast. But there's a few other things that we can look at as well, which we will do in today's episode. Where are you, you rat? All the way over there. Huh. Don't think we're gonna get them from over there anyways, whatever. So yeah, obviously there's the natural inclination to look at him as a as the antithesis. Oh, rubbish shot today. But we also can talk about him in the sense of what Scrooge's ideal is for employers of the period and him challenging kind of the Industrial Revolution and the shifting attitudes towards the way that workers are treated, kind of keeping that human element. Reload might not be a good shout because it's a little bit fast pace. Oh, there's another one. Come here, buddy. Where's your friend? So when we look at Fezziwig, we look at the fact that Scrooge has a lot of high praise to sing for Fezziwig. And that's really important because it tells us that Scrooge has the model of what good leadership, management, what good behavior looks like. He knows what is right and he's experienced it, which means that he has, oh shoot, essentially the model that he needs so that he can in fact be redeemed and transform at the end of the novella. And that's quite useful because it means that Scrooge has something to aspire to, and it really speaks to the fact that Fezziwig was a mentor and a model figure to Scrooge, and probably almost a father figure where Scrooge didn't have a father figure. Well, this is not going well. Excellent. Oof, this is rough. So, yeah, let's talk about a bit of the context before I get absolutely obliterated here. And obviously, Dickens is comparing an industrial England to a pre-industrial England, right? A time when obviously there was more care and compassion between employer and employee, to a time in the Industrial Revolution or post-Industrial Revolution where essentially laborers become no different than the means of production, right? They're kind of reduced to being a tool for the wealth and the profit of the wealthy in society. And that becomes obviously quite problematic because you see people like Bob Cratchit being really misused and mistreated by people like Scrooge. And so not only can we look at Fezziwig as like that model of like Christian behavior for what Dickens thinks a good boss should be like, we can also consider him in the respect of that pre-industrial ideal of a boss. Now, if we think about how Fezziwig is specifically presented, we'll go through a few of the key quotations and kind of pick them apart, really focus on that deep AO2 analysis, and of course, as we always do, applying that context in a really meaningful way, because that really is where the bread and the butter is when it comes to our results and our marks in the literature exams. So, the first quote that I picked out for us to look at is the one where Scrooge says that the happiness Fezziwig gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. Whoop. Rats. So. Come on out of there. So, that quotation, the happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. Obviously, Scrooge is talking about, it doesn't cost Fezziwig a great fortune to put on this party. It is expensive, of course it is, but it's not the cost that is important. It is the impact that it has on people and the way that it brings the community together, the way that it's an equalizer between employer and employee, and the way that it shows his gratitude, his generosity, his care, and his compassion for his fellow man. He's benevolent through and through. So in that sense, we get the idea of him being the ideal boss, that pre-industrial boss that finds the line between boss and caring, compassionate Christian fellow human being along the same journey to heaven. We also get the sense that Scrooge has learned a lesson from Fezziwig, but perhaps has forgotten it. And again, I think that really helps us understand how Fezziwig facilitates that transformation for Scrooge. The next quote that we can look at is, "In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly. In they all came." Obviously, you've got the listing, you've got the repetition of some, you've got that all came repeated, showing that there is no divide between people in Fezziwig's workplace, that he invites everyone equally. No, there's no class divide, which obviously in Victorian society is quite prevalent. Right, we talked in the previous videos about the divide between the rich and the poor, and the idea of the poor being undeserving of aid and support. And we see literally the opposite of that here in Fezziwig's party, where he more than willingly throws a party for everybody who plays any stake in his business, no matter how big or small their role, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are. Next, let's look at the positive light that issues from Fezziwig's calves. Now, I've always thought this is quite a silly image to present. Light portraying from his calves. It's just a bit strange, a bit odd. But obviously we know from all of the literature texts that we have studied that light is a symbol of God, of purity, of warmth. And so we definitely can attribute those qualities to Fezziwig. And it's the fact that he literally warms up the room and he brings warmth with him where he travels and has the ability to kind of impact and alter the moods and the spirits of every person in that room, right? You can throw a party and have loads of food and music and things, but it's not that that's going to make memories or make it a meaningful party for people. It's the company that you have when you're there, and well, Fezziwig sure does seem like great company. Where have you gone, you little schnitzel? Hello. Oh, rats. We were unprepared for that. Anyways, moving to the next quote. We can look at Scrooge's comment about how Fezziwig has the power to render his employees happy or unhappy, to make their there's someone here. Oh, for God's sake. Reload is not the thing for revision. Holy moly. Too much. Anyways, he says that they have the power to render, Fezziwig has the power to render them happy or unhappy, to make their service burdensome or light. And that's really, really important to look at, because we can directly contrast that to how Scrooge makes Bob's work incredibly burdensome. Ugh. We can't risk any more biscuits here. No, just don't. Leave me be. Rats. Let's try again. We're having no fun today. Oh well. So yeah, the fact that Scrooge recognizes that Fezziwig has the power to make their work easy or difficult just in the way that he treats them, right? It's not like he's changing the nature of the work, or that he's expecting less of his employees. It's the way that he treats them, and by showing them care and compassion, and by being benevolent and jovial and in good spirits, it makes it easier for them to do their jobs. They don't mind working hard because they want to work for Fezziwig. They want to succeed for Fezziwig. They want to give him success. Whereas you couldn't say the same, probably, for Bob working for Scrooge. He probably could get more work, better work out of Bob if he wasn't cold and miserable, uncomfortable, and living in fear every day of losing his situation. So there's a message in there for Scrooge about what it means to be a good boss. But it also suggests that, there can be wealth without suffering. That in a capitalist society, in a society in which there are those who have and those who have not, that wealth and prosperity can be achieved without the detriment of other people and without oppression. Now, if we think about some of the direct contrasts that we can make between Scrooge and Fezziwig, we can literally look at the descriptions between Scrooge and Fezziwig. because we have Scrooge obviously being described as cold and hard and sharp as flint, solitary as an oyster. No generous fire had ever been struck out. The wintry weather didn't know where to have him. You know, we have these really negative, cold, unfeeling, harsh descriptions of Scrooge in the beginning of the novella. But conversely, in this stave, we have descriptions of Fezziwig as being comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial. It's almost like Dickens is describing food. And in that sense, you can make some pretty nice parallels to the descriptions of Christmas food that Dickens references throughout the novella. Right? Turkeys, sausages, puddings. So almost that Fezziwig is a symbol of Christmas himself, in the fact that he himself is so rich in that sense. Sometimes a shotgun is just the thing you need. And beyond, obviously, that direct comparison between the characters, what you also might like to do is look at the subtle comparison between... where'd you go, buddy? Into the bush. Between the workplaces of Scrooge and Fezziwig. So Scrooge's workplace is obviously cold. Bob tries to warm himself at the candle, and Scrooge kind of hoards the coal and doesn't let there be much warmth in the office because he's so miserly, so cheap, that he doesn't want to waste it. Now, Fezziwig, on the other hand, his warehouse is described as snug and warm and dry and bright. And that's quite a contrast, quite a clear and deliberate juxtaposition to the setting of Scrooge's workplace. Again, serving to facilitate a signal to Scrooge that somewhere along the way he's lost that sense of what Fezziwig taught him. And, you know, maybe there would be a sense of shame there in how he's let Fezziwig down. And you could almost argue that comes from when he reflects on wanting to have a word with Bob when he's kind of recollecting at Fezziwig's party. Now, as with the last video, I did a little bit of wider reading and found some interesting ideas about Fezziwig that I encourage you to explore. Obviously, physics and math tutor is always a good shout. He'll be back. There you are. Ah! So, these will literally be the last two ideas. So if we die, we die. That's it. That's the end of the video. I will give up at that point. So Fezziwig kind of becomes this concept for what success in an industrialized England can look like. You know, that employers can reject that industrialist attitude of workers being part of the means of production. And so they can find a balance between being caring and compassionate while also making a profit and also putting his family first. So whereas in today's society, you know, we talk about work-life balance, and people wanting to find a way to manage their jobs and their home lives, Dickens presents Fezziwig as a character who balances work, family, and his contributions to the community. I want the rifle. Ugh, over there. So that's something that's interesting to look at, and something that you can compare to the modern context as well. He is a very balanced approach to life and very balanced ideals. Where are you? Oh, down there. That was a bit weird. Oh. The last idea, well, obviously we talked about the Industrial Revolution, actually. So that's kind of it. Just the idea that Dickens uses Fezziwig to show how people with wealth in society can balance their contributions to community, to their family, and still be profitable. That there's this idea of a moral capitalism where you can be wealthy but also care for your fellow man and do it in an ethical and reasonable way. And that wealth should be spread and used to promote social harmony and kind of general well-being and happiness in society. So that's it. Thanks for tuning in today. Obviously, if you found this content useful, don't be afraid to like and subscribe. We're happy to have as many people with us as we can, helping you prepare, obviously, for your exams. And do keep coming back. We'll have more content coming. Until then, adios.